be just starting in few minutes.
Sure. So as agreed, it will be an interview format. So happy.
Yes, they love to do that.
Yeah.
And
It makes my life easy also.
Yeah, and no, and they, I'm sure they have collected a lot of interesting questions by now. So, but it's good too. I think it's a very appropriate day to kind of talking with the Youngistan, what I call them.
And I see quite a few students are joined in, so it will be good.
Yeah. Some people must be the other way. I think maybe the live streaming happening there. So.
Okay.
All right, we'll begin now. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The pandemic has struck us hard. Despite these tough times, we are of the firm belief that anything but learning can stop. So we bring to you Yuvaan Conclave, an initiative by Nirmaan and YPAC on the occasion of National Youth Day. Swami Vivekananda's birthday was declared National Youth Day to motivate the youth to lead the nation to prosperity, following the path carved by Swami Vivekananda ji. Nirmaan organization is an NGO started by the students of Pilani in 2005. They work in the areas of education, skill development, entrepreneurship, and social leadership. YPAC, which stands for Young People's Action Committee, is also another NGO started and run by Pilani students. They work on developing community leadership skills and engaging with the government. Yuvaan Conclave was started to take Swami Vivekananda's message to the youth of BITS and beyond. The topic for our event today is how youth can make Bharat a world leader again, rethinking India at 75. As part of our talk today, I would like to welcome our honorable guest, Dr. R Balasubramaniam, a member of the Capacity Building Commission, Government of India, and a renowned grassroots physician. Dr. Ramaswamy Balasubramaniam is a development scholar, author, public policy advocate, leadership trainer known for his pioneering development work with rural and tribal people in Karnataka, India. He founded the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, a development organization based in Sarakpur when he was just 19. He is also the founder and chairman of the public policy think tank, Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement. Dr. R Balasubramaniam is also the recipient of numerous state and national awards. His life has been inspired by the work and life of Swami Vivekananda. Like Swami Vivekananda, Dr. Balu has dedicated his life to the upliftment and to the betterment of the undeserved. His kindness, wisdom, and clarity of thought stand out for anyone who speaks to him. But his sheer dedication and willingness to end human suffering is what separates him from his peers. For his irreplaceable contributions, he was awarded the Vivekananda Award for Human Excellence from the Ramakrishna Mission in 2014. It is indeed an honor to have a personality of your stature guiding us all today. I have some questions for you, sir. Let's dive right into it.
Thank you, Shisa. Thank you for the warm welcome and pleasure being with fellow students from BITS Pilani. It's sort of, I always cherish the time that I spent there several years ago, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure is ours. So, you've been working for the development of the economically weak from quite an early age. So, sir, my first question to you is, what got you interested in Swami Vivekananda in the first place? And how did you come up with this plan on founding the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement? Because there are very few people out there who spend their entire lives working for others instead of themselves. So, what made you realize that this is what you want to pursue in life?
It was just an accident. Each of us, it will be false to say that I was inspired and I decided to go do all this. I was just like any of the rest of you. And during my generation, those days, computers had just sort of got into the space and everybody was talking about some stuff called computers. And I still remember I was a member of the Bangalore Science Forum running in Bangalore, and they took us to visit Indian Science Computer Center. It's a huge building with big boxes. Possibly you can put 1,000 computers into one computer of those days. And so it sort of I was fixated that I need to get into this. I need to understand computer science. So like any young person of the times, those days, we used to have, I don't even think they exist even now, we had something called brilliant tutorials and other wall tutorials and stuff like that. We didn't have the quotas of the world those days. So where on correspondence, you took these courses to write the IIT exam. So I thought I should get into IIT. Unfortunately, IIT didn't think I deserved to get into them, so I think I didn't get admission. And we call the regional engineering colleges what they were called, the NITs of those days. So I had a reasonably good percentage. I had the 99.67% in PCM. That is a physics, chemistry, maths combination. I thought I would get into any of the good NIT at Suratkar, those days, REC Suratkar. But they had just introduced computer science and I was waitlisted one. Somebody with 100% beat me to it. Very disappointed. I did not know what to do. So I just came back and we didn't have entrance exams. So it was mostly by interview. So they asked me which college I wanted to go. I said, any college you're allowed to me. They gave me a college called BMS Engineering College in Bangalore. Some of you might be from Bangalore, and those of you are familiar with that. It's in a place called Gandhinagar, which is very close to the Ramakrishna Ashram in Bangalore. So I went there first day, and I was ragged very badly. There was no anti-ragging those days. Ragging was a formality every junior had to undergo. It was sort of an initiation exercise. And after the first day, first experience of it, I thought I can't get into this college again. Extremely nervous, extremely tense, not knowing what to do. Came up to the college the second day, didn't have the courage to get in, so I just thought I'll come back, but I knew that my mother would ask me, how are you back home so early? So I had to give her some reason, some excuse. I had to spend time somewhere. As a typical middle class person, you don't have money to spend in a theater. At the same time, you don't have the courage to come back home. So the Ramakrishna Mission was very inviting. I thought, let me go there, spend some time around walking around the campus. I think a few monastic members must have seen me and they must have been started to wonder whether I've come there to steal fruits. They had a lovely fruit orchard. So I wanted to pretend to be a very serious contender for monkhood. So I went and sat in the library. And it was just pretension. So, but one day led to the second day, led to the third day. It was a lovely place, very quiet environment those days. And I started reading the complete works of Swami Vivekananda just to look busy. Absolutely no intention of knowing anything about Vivekananda. But then the next 2 months, I pretty much read. Those days, they were in 8 volumes, the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. 2 books, which I think every young man should read. I think it should be part of every college's curriculum. One book is called To the Youth of India, and the other is called His Call to the Nation. So where Swami Vivekananda gives a call to the youth of this country. Statements like, so long as the millions live in hunger and ignorance, I call every young man a traitor who, having been educated at people's expense, pays not the least heed to them. These kind of statements inspired me. 2 months later, I was just thinking about this and said, if I get an opportunity in my life, I would do something like this. I had never desired to be a doctor. I never even planned to be a doctor. And when I felt very inspired, the same evening I come home, I find a telegram saying from the government saying, join Mysore Medical College immediately. To me, I even now look at it as a divine message, a message conspired by forces, an indication that my life is going to be different. And so I just decided that I'm going to, and I was admitted to the Mysore Medical College. That's why I went to Mysore. That was 1982. 1.5 years of studying, and I felt I can't hold on anymore. Vivekananda himself, there's a compilation of his writings on a book called Vivekananda on himself, where he talks about how once his ideas enter us, he says, even if you get to the tiniest pore in your body, then I will make sure that the enormous amount of work that can be done through you starts. And I think every one of us, if we can just get into understanding Swami Vivekananda, though his thoughts are 100 years or more old, I think they're as relevant today as any time before, especially to people like every one of you with huge potential. So I think that there's so much that we can all do, and that's how I got into this. So my intent was just trying to deconstruct Swami Vivekananda, and I believe that his life is a message for every young man to just do what he can for this great country of ours.
Right, sir. Swami Vivekananda's life is indeed a message for all. And that was a really interesting story of how you got into this line. So, moving on, inspired by this message of Swami Vivekananda, you see your life's mission as building a resurgent India by inspiring leadership in the youth of our country. Swami Vivekananda expected muscles of iron and nerves of steel from the Indian youth. How do you plan to achieve that? And like, what type of leadership do you wish for in the youth?
I think leadership is a highly researched subject, but a very misunderstood and under-understood subject. We all are very easily talk about being a leader or becoming a leader. Or I think we all need to distinguish the noun form of being a leader from the verb form of exercising leadership. And if you understand Vivekananda, his life is all about action. And so my appreciation of what leadership meant comes from his teachings. I'll just answer the first part of your question first. How can we go about getting these young people to participate? Now, if you look at Swamiji and his life's message, throughout his different parts of his work, as much as he talks about muscles of iron and nerves of steel, he talks about all of us engaging constantly learning. He talks about learning being constantly expanding our thinking, expanding our understanding of how things go on in the external world external to us and the world internal to us. Understanding internal nature and external nature. And he says our pursuit should be that. So if you deconstruct this sentence and that, and the third sentence that he talks about is you can't teach Bhagavad Gita on an empty stomach, which means you have to ensure that you take care of yourself, you feed yourself properly, and you live a life which is appropriate, in a sense in which you can be able to meet your basic needs. So if you pick different parts of Swami Vivekananda's message, four things stands out, and which is I'll come to the sentence that he captures it all in. So to me, my understanding of human development comes from this appreciation of Vivekananda, where he talks of investing on the potential of people, not just young people. And because on one place he talks of education being character building and man making. So putting all of it together, my interpretation of his message is, how do you build every person physically? Whether it is appropriate food, good nutrition, good drinking water, just taking care of this body. And then the next level is how do you actually build a person cognitively, the intellectual space. And at the third level, Vivekananda talks about embracing whole of humanity, looking at the whole world as mine. And this appreciation of universalism that Swamiji speaks about is not possible for people if you don't have a deep sense of emotional maturity, where you're able to understand yourself, you're able to understand people around you. So I believe that Vivekananda's message is very strong about building ourselves physically, building ourselves intellectually, building ourselves emotionally, and all this for the purpose of recognizing our true self, the inner self, that is spiritually. But just spiritual evolution, doing all this just for our sake is intensely selfish. So Vivekananda says selfishness is sin. And he says the world needs to understand the practice of selflessness is what can take you towards God. And he coins this so beautifully. He talks about Atmano Mokshartam Jagathitayacha. The appreciation of the recognition of the self and its glory can only happen through the service of mankind. So our investment on ourselves, physically, intellectually, emotionally, should be for societal growth, societal welfare, and societal development. And through that, we should seek our spiritual development. So to me, that is leadership. Leadership is one continuous spiritual journey where you understand yourself, you understand people around you, understand the actions that bind you to the people around you. And those actions must result in societal growth, societal development. So if our young people of today, you are all a privileged generation, all of you can decide not to take a job after you graduate. Many of you, at least most of you, that couldn't have been the statement 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, my generation, I'm sure 75 to 80% of us would have had no choice but to take a job because our families depended on it, etc. Maybe father's generation, he had absolutely no choice. 100% of them had to take a job the day they graduated. But if you all step back and ask yourselves, how many of you will starve if you don't take a job tomorrow after you graduate? The chances are it will be less than 20%, which means 80% of you can afford to take risks, see life as an adventure, and actually look at what you can do for society. And just asking you all to do something for society, you're not going to wear a kurta, take on an old bag and walk into a village just because somebody asks you to do. So you're all going to ask yourself, why would I do it, right? And so I think the practical message of Vivekananda in today's generation, relevant to today's generation, is how do you actually enable you to be societally useful while at the same time taking care of yourself. So the magic mantra is private gains while enabling public good. If the Ishikas and the Anushkas and the Ashishs of the world decide that how do I create societal good, while at the same time able to express myself for my own self also. And finding that perfect balance it will be the way we can create a new economic order, a new for-benefit world. And that's the leadership we need to inspire and young people. And only this generation can do it because you have the ideas, you have the energy, you have the talent bandwidth. All you need is what Vivekananda said, the 3H. The heart to feel, the head to think, and the hands to work. Heart to feel for the people, for the poor, the marginalized, and those who need our support. Head to think through the solutions to the various problems in this country and every people society is facing. And you go out there and do it. You can't tell somebody else to do it. The hands to work. So leadership is exactly these three: motivation. That's where the leadership journey begins, and then strategy, where you think through what to do, whether it's organization or country or yourself, and action. So the leadership message is exactly how Vivekananda articulated in different words, and therefore I feel his message will have to, we'll have to have find a practical expression in today's world, and that's the way I would interpret it.
I hope so. This definition of leadership is embodied by everyone over here present and to the other youth of India. Moving on, so the youth of today is very different from what it was a few generations back, like you just said. It is more materialistic driven, unlike that of our ancestors. Given our society is constantly evolving, do you think if Swami Vivekananda ji was still here, he would preach the same message as he did then?
I think so, because the message is eternal. It is our interpretation of the message is altering because the context have altered. What do any of us? Let's even look at how society has evolved across time in the historical context of India. If you look at our scriptures, we look at our Puranas, the stories that all of us have grown up. India, we are all a nation. Young people today are restless. They're extremely conscious of what they want in life, but they're not sure what they want. It's sort of a confused state. I meet at least 100,000 young people in different ways across the country, across the world. And I enjoy the energy they bring, the creative space that they operate in, and the adventure that they have in their minds, and the spirit of, I can do whatever I want to do, that kind of an adventurous spirit. But then I also see the confusions, the indifference, the inadequacies, and the sense of helplessness that they bring also sometimes. So it's a very conflicting space that many of you operate in. And if you complicate this with the distractions that society brings up, it becomes worse. So fortunately or unfortunately, if you look at Vivekananda's message, he said, my faith is in the younger generation. Why would he have said it with such conviction? And I'm sure he will not alter it even today. He said, give me a handful of young men and women and I'll change the world. And I can give you tens of examples in this country and outside, where young people are the ones who are making a difference. Every person who's a great achiever today is becoming younger and younger in age. Whether it's a startup unicorn, or whether it is somebody in the forest, or it's somebody starting his own social enterprise or getting into public service, you're all extremely young. So to me, that gives hope. And I believe that we have not channelized it properly. We have not been providing them correct role models, because the youth, as adventurous as they are, also seek role models. They also like to see success and then imitate it to the extent that they can. And what is the kind of imitation can you make today? When you what is society celebrating is what you imitate. So there was a time in history in our country when we celebrated knowledge. That is why you had a king like Vishwamitra. And I'm not celebrating the Varnashramas, but I'm just giving you historical context. Right? A king who was known to fight and be a Kshatriya feels that becoming a Brahmin is more important to him, and he says, and it's just a symbolic word, but acquiring knowledge is more priority for him. He goes out there and becomes a monk, acquires knowledge. You have a generation later where valor and courage and all that was celebrated, and everybody wanted to be that, whether the tribal boy Ekalavya living in the forest, or a Brahmin like Dronacharya or Parshurama or Kripacharya. They all took to arms. So valor was what everybody wanted to imitate. Young people all wanted to become the Arjunas and the Karnas of the world. But keep coming down generation, and if you look at early 19th century and before independence, Being a nationalist, being a patriot, giving your life for this country was the most important thing. Getting independence from colonial rulers were what Indians wanted, young people wanted. At that time, patriotism was the law of the land. That was aspiration for young people. That's why a Chandrasekhar Azad or a Bhagat Singh or a Rajguru or a Sukhdev could give up their lives at 1920 for this country. Right? That was the energy that was there. Post-independent India was a phase when we really didn't have real role models in that sense. Many of them thought public service, joining the IAS could become a career that they wanted. But the last 20, 30 years, post-economic liberalization, everybody suddenly thinks making money and becoming an entrepreneur and making a few millions by the time you're 22, 23 is something which you have to role model, right? We suddenly celebrate all those people. Luckily, in the last 7 to 8 years, the country has started celebrating the insignificant, so-called insignificant, ordinary people who do extraordinary work in the villages of country, social spaces, etc., and we're giving them Padma Shris and making them recognizable. But the reality is, hopefully soon we'll start celebrating becoming that. The very fact that you invited me to share my thinking with all of you itself is a recognition of that kind of situation, right? Others people like me would not even be invited to occasions like this. Let's be practical. You would rather have a Narayan Murthy or Azim Premji come and talk about how to set up a company than invite somebody to come and talk about how to go serve in the forest of India. But things have changed today. That's exact. This is hopeful growth for this country. So I think what all of you do are to seek role models. And today the youth of India are, I think, at a privileged position when the demographic dividend is also there. The productive dependency ratio, the productive number of young people who have to worry about the dependent people is so less. The dependency ratios are so less. You have the freedom to try out all kinds of things you want. And you don't have to earn money to go take care of your parents tomorrow. So I think if this generation somehow doesn't take it on as its responsibility to build a great country, and I think we lose an opportunity and we'll never regain it. 15 to 29 age group is around 30% in this country. 1/3 the country's people of your age, and people less than 40 is 80%. If 80% of Indians decide we're going to be the greatest country in the world, there is nothing that can stop us. Sheer numbers will be the greatest.
Right. So the core message of Swami Vivekananda was always the same, despite the generations.
So I think if he comes back today, he'll say the same thing I said. You
Yes,
can
sir.
and you should. You know, his message was so simple. He said, be and make. What more can you ask? Now, just to add to that, he said 3 things are necessary to make an organization great, a country great. And I think the same 3 things apply even today as it applied a century ago. He said, conviction in the power of goodness. We need it desperately today. We need to believe goodness will thrive. And he said, second thing he said is absence of jealousy and suspicion. If 4 people get together, we have 5 fights in 6 minutes. But we can't afford it. We need to learn to work together. Today, everything is about teamwork, collaboration, partnerships. How do we go beyond, transcend this jealousy and suspicion that we create for ourselves, which human ego creates for us? And the third thing he said is so simplistic. He said doing good and helping everybody who does good. So you don't care whether you're a Hindu, Muslim, Christian. Anybody doing good, I support him. And that's all that matters. I'll try to do good, and everybody who does good, I'll support them. That's what this country needs right now. Right? Same message of Vivekananda as relevant today as it was 100 years ago.
Right. So I hope everyone gets inspired by this message. And I'm sure the youth of India will definitely achieve new heights if we all follow these. So moving on in the book which you've written, The Leadership Lessons of Daily Living, you've compiled real life anecdotes of people exercising leadership in their everyday lives. So can you share with us one such incident which happened in your life and left a deep impact on you?
I think all the incidents I have written there actually left its own impact on me in different ways. The story that I've written in another book, in one book I write, earlier book, Voices from the Grassroots, I write about being rich while staying poor. Where this young tribal, a Jainakurpa tribal, is somebody who is considered to be very marginalized, and they call them the primitive and vulnerable tribal groups. That's how the government calls them. That's so vulnerable. And this young man brought his father-in-law to the hospital. The father-in-law was spraying cotton, had developed organophosphorus poisoning, and so he needed ventilatory support, and we didn't have a ventilator those days in the hospital, so we had to refer him to Mysore. very expensive those days, and he didn't have the money, and we couldn't afford to send him to Mysore. We needed 1,000 rupees. Those days, 1,000 rupees was a big sum. Today it seems like just 3 coffees, but those days it was a big sum. And so one of the doctors pulled together his money and gave the boy 1,000 rupees and said, "Take your, our hospital provided the ambulance free, but take him to Mysore. He needs a ventilator. Others he's going to die." Cut a long story short, he goes there, he survives, he comes back, and then all of us forgot. Because this is every day for us. Every day we do 100 such deeds and we don't even think of it as important. 3-4 months later, this young man comes to my office and he comes with a complaint and says, "I went and met the doctor. I wanted to return this 1,000 rupees. The doctor is not accepting. He's not taking it back. So I don't think it's fair. I'm a young man. I earned my living. I could earn money every day, saved some of it. The last 3, my father-in-law survived thanks to your intervention. I brought him back. Next 3 months, I've been working. I've been saving money every day. Now I pulled up 1,000 rupees. I want to give it back." I told him, "No, but you can keep this for yourself. You don't want it back. The doctor doesn't want it back." Then he told me something. He said, "There'll be more such people like me coming to this hospital. And at that moment of time, that 1,000 rupees will make a difference. Please keep this 1,000 rupees for that." Now, look at this young man, 20, 21 years old, maybe studied up till 7th or 8th standard, considered to be vulnerable tribal. He's so rich at heart. This is generosity in a divine expression, finding a divine expression. Somebody who didn't even have to come back and tell us that he's brought back, forget, give alone, live and give back the 1,000 rupees. He didn't even have to come back even. So I was so inspired by this incident. I just couldn't, it took a long time for me to even stop shedding a tear when I think of it. Other thing I write in the leadership book is about, I think, seeing, or in the Voices from the Grassroots book itself, I think seeing God in man, and the nature of seeing God in man. This was a young banana seller. I was just walking to the Ramakrishna Ashram in Mysore one day, and then on the way there's a small traffic crossing, signal lights, and I could hear, I was standing there for the signal to turn green to walk on the pedestrian crossing, and I was hearing a loud noise of people fighting, 2 people fighting, and a lot of noise. And I looked around seeing what it is, a banana seller and a fellow trying to buy bananas. We have this crazy psychology in our country. If you walk into a major mega mart or Reliance Food World or something like that, you have banana wrapped in plastic and you simply pay the price quoted. You won't even think twice. But you go on the footpath and you buy bananas, you will want to haggle with the poor lady there. So this man was doing exactly that. He was buying bananas and he was asking for 5 or 6 bananas for 10 rupees. And the lady was saying, "No, I will not give it to you." And he was insisting. And finally, she got so pissed off at him. She said, "I don't want your business. Get away." She was so angry with him. And then after the noise subsided, the fight subsided and the noise subsided, all of us heard a baby crying, a 2-3-year-old child crying. And I looked around, I saw the child too. And this lady who a few minutes ago did not even think twice about not giving the bananas to the fellow, was ready to pay her 10 rupees, just broke 2 bananas and gave it to the child. Because the mother recognized that the child was hungry, which I did not recognize. I just saw it opposite the signal light was a building under construction. And maybe her mother was working there in the construction site as a laborer, and this girl had wandered off and she was very hungry. And that unspoken kindness, that is leadership in action. And I asked her, "Do you know Vivekananda? Do you know Ramakrishna Paramahamsa? Their ashram is just here." Because Ramakrishna's philosophy was Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva. Service of man is a way to understand God. This lady had not heard of both of them, but she's living the message. Isn't that leadership in action? These are ordinary people whom we dismiss off as ordinary, but indulge in extraordinary actions every day. So we just have to look around, recognize it, and then participate in it. That's the way I would look at it.
Right, so both these incidents in real life were really impactful. So moving on, there is a saying that leaders don't create more followers, they create more leaders. So according to you, do you think a society just needs leaders or both leaders as well as followers for it to succeed? And also, do you think a person can be both a leader and a follower?
Like I go back to what I said earlier, Ishika, I do not believe in the concept of being a leader. I only believe that each one of us get opportunities to exercise leadership. Some of us take that opportunity, some of us don't. Now, being a leader implies a 24/7 somebody on a pedestal out there and he'll have to keep responding to the situation around him. That's a big fundamental flaw in the way we understand leadership. In our country, we equate positions of authority and power to being a leader. The director of the institute or the dean of your school is just a man in a position of authority. He can also exercise leadership if he wants to. He doesn't have to exercise leadership if he doesn't want to. The president of a country, the prime minister, the chief minister, all of them are privileged positions of authority. We need to distinguish authority from leadership. So leadership to me it's an action word. It's like what I explained from what I understood from Vivekananda. So I would define it as leadership is an activity of mobilizing a group, mobilizing yourself and a group around you and their resources for doing something societally constructive amidst enormous uncertainty. So you don't have to be a leader all the time. At some instance, you may want to exercise leadership. In some other instance, maybe your classmate who's better at it and he or she will exercise leadership. Understanding, having the maturity and wisdom to know when I should be exercising leadership, when I should let the leadership get exercised by somebody else who's more competent in that particular context, that is also leadership. So leadership is always a combination of followership and taking on the initiative. It's always a package. So we say, if you look at how you understand evolution of the space of leadership, that at the first level, when you're a young child, we talk about it of being in a socialized mindset, where you're willing to accept whatever people say. Now, if you look at your own life, possibly 3-4 years ago, when you were an adventurous teenager, at the age and when you no longer, if you are 4 years old, you do what your mother tells you. If you're 14 years old, you would not do everything your mother tells you. Because you have evolved from being socialized to becoming more self-authorizing. You decide for yourself. Because your world, your context, the way you interpret life is different from the way your mother would interpret life. But she sees you as a 4-year-old, but you see yourself as a 14-year-old. And there's a difference. Gradually, real leadership is evolving from socialized mindset, when people are followers, to self-authorizing mindset, where increasingly entrepreneurial and what you call the typical intuitive world call yourself as a leader, to actually becoming self-transformed, the highest expression of leadership. And to me, at that space, you can be both at the same time. And Warren Bennis, the great leadership expert, he describes it so beautifully. He said leadership, the height of leadership, the peak of leadership expression is the ability to have two contradictory thoughts together at the same time. And you can be a follower, you can also be a leader. And that is what is the way my definition also aligns itself to.
I get it. I get what you mean. So Swami Vivekananda said that in the 19th century will belong to Europe, the 20th century will belong to the US, and 21st century will belong to India. How far do you think we are away from achieving his vision, and what can the Indian youth do to accelerate this vision?
I believe we are nearly there. All it requires is every one of you to recognize your own potential. I see two classical ways I see young people today. One way I see them is you stand in front of a mirror and you're keeping on crying, saying, I can't see my image properly. Oh my God, I'm so weak, I can't see my image. All you need is somebody to come and wipe the dust off the mirror and say, now can you see yourself? So such people need role models to be shown their true inner potential. That is what our teachers are supposed to do. That's what our higher education institutions are supposed to do. To show you your true potential by wiping the dust away from that mirror, which can show you your true reflection and make you believe in yourself. The second kind of young people are not those helpless, weak kinds. They're the ones who blame the world. And they stand in front of the mirror saying that, oh, my image is not proper. The mirror is clean. The world is fine. But you keep criticizing the world, saying, oh, the mirror is not okay. It's not reflecting my correct image. I am beautiful, but the mirror is faulty. But what you're not understanding is there's dust sitting on your face. You have to have the courage to recognize it and wash your face off, and then you'll be great. So in first situation, all you need is a gentle catalyst, a mentor, a role model to kickstart your growth. In the second case, all you need is you stop blaming the world and look within yourself. So the ability to look outside and look out inside, both at the same time, is a powerful message of Vivekananda that we need to understand today. And I believe if we can tell this message to young people, they have the skill sets, they have the energy, all their lack is purpose. They need a purpose in life. And when they can find their true purpose, and that true purpose is to make this country a great place. Make India, in Vivekananda's language, he said, see Mother India resplendent in all her glory, sitting on the throne and becoming the Jagat Guru to the world. And that is what India needs. What we are all sitting on is the cusp of the change. We are all made to believe that things are bad. We are all made to believe for decades that India is a corrupt country. We can't do anything good. I think we have to overcome this mediocrity. We have to understand that quality is also spirituality. We have to understand live our own potential to the fullest and get married to the idea that we can be the best. We don't have to be the second best in anything. Believe that, not just using Amazon and Google, but creating the next Amazon and Google. Start small, take one step at a time. And I'm sure it may take 5 years, 10 years. But if this ocean of young people just start believing that they can make a difference, that is the beginning of change. That 50% of the problem solved. For that, stand in front of a clean mirror with a clean washed face, see your own inner potential, and the world will be at your feet. I think India is at that cusp today. All we need is for people to be told that you are capable, you are wonderful, and you should do it. Our parents need to hear this message. Parents, every time, if you're 4 years old and you're climbing up a tree, what is the message your parents give? Don't climb, you'll fall and break your leg. We have to stop giving this don't list to our kids and keep saying you can. That's all we need. Create an ecosystem where your positivity flourishes, your energy finds expression, and I think the world will be at India's feet. And we can tell the world the message of Jagat Guru is not material power, but it is about societal growth. And we can show the world how investing on human and social capital is a way for economic progress to happen, not blindly pursuing economic progress. So we can be that country which creates a new economic paradigm where we move away from being a shareholder in just economic growth, but making every human being a stakeholder in progress. And we are all, there's a political transformation happening, there's an economic transformation happening, but our young people transforming themselves to join the party. And the moment they do it, what will take 20 years can be done in 2. And I am very, very confident, and my only prayer is it happens when I am alive.
Right. So both these examples which you gave, they were amazing, making us realize what needs to be done further to take that leadership of India to another level. Moving on, sir, seva or service as a concept is generally seen as something that requires sacrifice or tyaga. You also spent years living in the tribal areas, solving the issues at the grassroots level, leaving all the comforts of a city life. But for an average youth who is ambitious about his or her own future, what should be the most appealing idea of seva?
See, I think seva itself is not completely understood. The idea of seva is a very Indian construct. The closest construct that you can give it the closest translation interpretation is service or help. Now, the way the Western world understands help is it's very transactional. You drop your pen while walking, I come and pick it up and give it to you, and you say thank you. If you go away without saying thank you, I'll say, what kind of a young woman is this? She doesn't even thank me for helping her, right? And so that is my expectation of picking up the pen is I sort of subconsciously expect you to thank me. And if you don't, then I become judgmental of you. Whereas seva is not that. Seva is a powerful spiritual expression of celebrating the divinity in the other. And you can do this wherever you are. Seva is not something you have to live the life I led in a forest. That's a mistaken concept. If you're an engineer, if you're a scientist, if you're a physicist or whatever you are in life, a doctor, if you can give your 100% to what you're doing, with no expectation of what you're doing to happen that moment of time itself. If you're just living in the present, giving your full 100%, that is service too. Sacrificing the consequences of your action is also tyaga. And we don't interpret it that way. We think service is going away, getting your education, going into the forest, living in a hut, and that is service. No. Live in a city. Live the life that you want to lead, but lead it ethically. Lead it in a morally satisfying way, and lead it to the attitude of, I give my 100% to what I'm doing, my fullest expression of what I am, my potential, and expect me to get the 100% qualitative outcome of this, but I don't want to do it for that's sake. I do it because I just have to do it. And the moment that is living Bhagavad Gita. Living the Bhagavad Gita is not just talking about and say karmanya vadikaraste. Just live it. And I think that is the greatest service. To me, sacrifice, tyaga is not physical comforts. I also thought like you 35 years ago when I went and did it. I thought going into the forest, living without electricity is tyaga. And I thought I must be good. I'm giving up all this. But that's a very limited appreciation of it. The real tyaga is giving up, I did it. I am great. I lived in a forest. Sacrificing the sense of I. And in Vivekananda's language, he says it so beautifully. He said, don't stand on a pedestal and say, here, my poor man, take my 5 cents. Consider yourself privileged that the man was available for you to do service to, right? He says, God who created the cow, the calf, God who created the calf also made the cow. So he knows how to take care of everybody. So feel privileged that you are the instrument. In fact, the sentence he writes, I felt it was written for me. So he writes like all the schools you build, all the hospitals you construct can get washed away in one cyclone or can crumble to dust in one earthquake. So remember, you are not the doer, but consider it's a privilege that you had the opportunity to get all this done. Real leadership is not thinking that I can do it, but real leadership is about seeing that this can be done. The moment you take that spirit, I think that is understanding of seva. And that's how I would interpret it. And that's how I think every young man should interpret it.
That is a really wonderful interpretation of seva, sir. So we have some questions from the audience also now. One of the questions is, according to Swamiji's ideology, which is the better way to contribute to a society by providing some basic amenities to the poorest section or using our skills to make the life of people easier? Like, how can we apply our engineering skills in helping that poorest section of our society?
I think I would say don't even decide that you want to apply your engineering skills to the poorest section of society. You really don't know. Have the humility to say, I don't know what the poor need. I don't even know because I don't even understand poverty. Don't make the mistakes I did in my life. Go with the arrogance of a Western education and say, here, my poor man, take my 5 cents. Just go live with the people. Go love, just love them, live with them, learn from them. And then when you decide to work with them and not for them, you'll find solutions. Maybe they are engineering solutions. Maybe they are not. The moment you go with the idea that you're an engineer, you'll always see engineering solutions. Maybe the problem is very different. So if you have a hammer, you will obviously see nails everywhere. But I think I write about this in my book also, how I made the mistake as a public health expert and what I learned from it. In I, the Citizen, I write that. But I think don't even brand yourself as what you are. All you do, like Vivekananda said, is just feel for the poor. Just go there, live with them, learn from them. Remember, traditional wisdom is also rich. The poor are also thinkers. Don't forget it. Don't take away their dignity by thinking for them. Living with them, partner with them, together discover the problem, together explore the solution. And that is the young man that this country needs. Not the arrogant young man who thinks just because he went to a big Pilani or IIT, he can solve the world's problems or the country's problems. Throw it away out of the window and say, it has given me the toolkit, it has given me a lot of tools. I don't know how I can use it, but let me go find out if the problem needs my toolkit at all. If not, go discover something. I started my life as a physician. I soon realized my toolkit was inadequate. I came to BITS Pilani, did an MPhil program. It was not adequate. I went to Harvard, did a master's program, did a couple of fellowships. I still think I'm learning all the time. I realize that all these toolkits can only help you up to a particular point. The greatest toolkit is having the humility to learn from people around you. And that includes the poor. So go with that attitude and you will be able to do a lot.
I hope that everyone over here listens to this, and I'm sure we'll all be able to achieve a lot. So another question is that Swami Vivekananda was a great leader, but why do you think he didn't enter politics to change the system himself or to serve the country on a bigger level?
Is it what he's doing is such a big level today? Millions and millions of young people around the world are inspired with life and messages of Swami Vivekananda. Wasn't it greater? He himself writes in one place in Vivekananda on himself, if I want to, I can get India's independence in 3 days or something like that, he says. But I don't think Indians are ready for it. So he says, let's build people first. So let's build the character, let's make men. Let's build the right people and invest on them. And today, his name, what are we all doing? We're all here celebrating his message. What am I doing? I'm just unashamedly and proudly restating what he said. Nothing what I have said is original thinking. Everything is from his teachings. And I believe isn't that much more inspiration and much more contributory to this country and to the world itself. I remember one book. It's not very popular in India, but it's very popular in the US. A great American historian, Eleanor Stark, she did a PhD on this and wrote the book called Eternal Gift Unopened. She studied the United States and its growth and realized that in 1890s was when the milestone of change was happening to the United States. And when she went deeper, she recognized that a tornado or cyclone called Vivekananda entered the United States in the 10 years twice, and that changed American thinking. So she writes in her book, If Christopher Columbus can be credited with discovering the land of America, it was Vivekananda who gave her its soul. And she says Vivekananda was the greatest gift God gave to the land of America. Americans have not yet opened that gift. So she calls it a gift unopened. I think Swami Vivekananda was a great gift that God has given to Indians. We have partially opened him and we interpret him very narrowly from our perspective. We should have the courage to open him more and more and more. Discover him every day, discover him in everything that we do. And I think that is the best way for this country. And don't you think every young man who discovers him is a potential Vivekananda? So instead of seeing Vivekananda as a personality, as an icon, as somebody out there, start exploring the Vivekananda inside you and give expression to Swami Vivekananda embedded in each one of you. And I think that is the young man that India needs today. And there'll be a million Vivekanandas who will take care of this country. And that is what I think Swami Vivekananda would want. Not one politician called Vivekananda who might have been a prime minister or president or got his freedom, but a million Vivekanandas in each one of you. And that is what India needs today.
Yes, so Swami Vivekananda himself, whatever he's done up till now, also they are great, even beyond what we can think. Um, so lastly, you were an alumni of BITS Pilani, as we all know. So can you share with us some anecdote from your days in BITS for our students here, which left an impact for you?
Okay, I can share several incidents, but one incident was at the MPhil level. We are all given that nice little single room hostel that's near the gate. I don't know what to call that, a guest house or something like that. And uh, I remember one day I found hundreds of little mites or ticks all over the room. And then I realized all the pigeons of the country and the pigeons had all nested in the small little gaps in the air conditioning unit or whatever, and they all were infected with all these ticks and mites, and they all had come out of the pigeons and all over the wall. I thought, oh my God, what kind of institution have I come to without knowing what the problem was? And then they spoke about it. The second thing was the food in the mess that we had there was something extraordinary. And we used to enjoy eating. And all of us are all middle-aged people who were not supposed to be eating so much. And unashamedly we ate. And one of the younger person in the group said, you know, I heard some of the young students tell us about that there's a whole night food joint that is open. And you have to go eat masala Maggi and masala Pepsi or something like that. I don't know if it's all still there. It's a long time ago, more than 2 decades ago, so it may not even be there now. So like kids, teenage kids, we all went at 2 in the night just to eat and drink that, along with young people of maybe your ages then. And then we all felt, oh my God, this is what makes you feel like being on campus again. It is not the class, it is not the studying, but it's being with friends, doing what you want at 2 in the night, and the campus providing you the space for that. So I think in its own special way. And the third thing I can never forget is the lovely noises the peacocks make early in the morning. For some, it could be just noise, but for me, it was a sign that life began early on Beach Pilani, and it was so filled with life beyond just kids. Now, all young people would get up so late, but the peacocks would get up so early and make such a noise, and it would be fun to listen to it. So I would enjoy that. So these are all things in my mind. So when I come there next time to campus, I want to make sure that if that masala Maggi is still available, go eat it. Or if
It's
that
definitely available still, sir. In
it's
fact,
still
it's very,
available,
it
or
is, it is.
it looked like Bitch Pilani's trademark. And to go walk around the campus and see those peacocks again.
Yes, sir, definitely an integral part in, I think, every Bitsin's life is to wake up by the sounds of those peacocks. We also have amidst us the director of BITS Pilani, Professor Sudhir Kumar Barai, to grace the occasion with his words. Adored and respected by all the students who have studied under him, we are indeed grateful for having him here today. Sir, I would like to invite you to say a few words.
Thank you, Ishika, and thank you, Dr. Balu. I think it is definitely indeed a great pleasure. I'll start with the last things what you mentioned about the beds. Peacocks still, the number of peacocks have increased. In fact, today we were having a discussion that a lot of peahens are there, but we have less peacocks. So maybe the gender diversity has changed to for a better. I hope it happens in mankind as well, that the women takes more power than the peahens actually. And regarding the food, yes, all-night canteens and the pigeons. It's a lovely campus, and in fact, it has become much more beautiful. I don't know when you visited last time, but I think
8 years ago, so it's a
yeah.
long
So I
time.
think now it has become more beautiful, I'm sure, and we will definitely invite you on campus. It was absolutely delight to hear from you all wonderful thoughts, which actually this young generation definitely needs at the right time, and particularly you celebrating this day in collaboration with Nirmaan and YPAC, which is absolutely, I think they have done a wonderful job of bringing you here. I was kind of looking at your whole conversations and the dialogue which was happening between you and Ishika, the questions which were brought in here. It was actually very intriguing for me that the the accidental thing, the ragging, making an individual changing the whole course of life. And today we are here with you, where you are kind of sharing some of the thoughts which are very, very essential for the yeah, youth of this country. Uh, when you mentioned specifically, because I come from IISc Bangalore, and I have been very much impressed by the institutional and the kind of history behind formation of IISc, which was again Swami Vivekananda was the very, very instrumental individual who motivated Jamshedji Tata during this voyage and told to set up the institute in Bangalore. And that is where spending almost 8 years in that institute, the in the opening conversation, you mentioned three items, which is very, very important. That which Swami Vivekananda also said, that the physical, the cognitive, and also the humanity. These three things indirectly IISc has imbibed in every individual who became a part of that institute. And I'm sure every academic institution does that. But I still remember that the institute used to always say that you need to be fed well so that you can have that cognitive ability to utilize at a higher intellectual level, so that you can contribute to the society. And I'm very happy that being part of this institute, where our students are absolutely socially relevant individuals when they go out from the institute. And this generation is what you said very rightly. We are almost like this generation belongs to, well, like, to the, rather you can say this century belongs to the Indians because of the youth like this. Because what is happening is that they have become the people who are ready to take risk, which actually is not was the time when I think possibly my time, you can say that it was, we always used to think about how we graduate and we get a job. But this generation is no, they're ready to take the risk. And that is a very beautiful part, which is about this youth. One of the very important thing which you highlighted was the mirror, and that is absolutely right. Actually, whether we, it's a time for us to see not only inward, but we should see also outward, so that we are able to kind of see the real reality, and that is how we can contribute. About the seva, I really love that your definition of seva, which actually I'm sure all of you, all the students who are attending this interaction will take with them. And the last one, which is I think being academicians, I always felt that the greater humility is to learn from all. Actually, everyone can kind of contribute of your learning processes. And this generation sometimes goes on a crossroad, that what they would like to do if they have a certain qualifications. And you have rightly mentioned that if you really want to contribute to the society, you have to live with the people, understand, love them, and possibly in collaboration with them, possibly you will be solving the very, very complex problems, whether your understanding of the knowledge or background, whatever you have, or you might possibly evolve with that. And that is what going to contribute to kind of making the society much better. And I like the story about the what you mentioned about the expression of a gratitude, of this story from your book, which you mentioned about the. So I'm sure that every one of us will take this message very loud and clear, that if we want to really become the socially relevant, we really want to contribute, the opportunity is just knocking on our door. Just is a matter of opening the door, having with the great humility and also the expression of a gratitude. I'm sure we can make a huge change to the country, and of course to the world by large. And of course, the package is still half unpacked, basically, which is left, which we need to open it very carefully and absorb ourselves so that we can be. And the every individual having the Vivekananda sitting in them is something which is a very strong message you have driven. It's just a matter of every individual looks inward and tries to at least come out. Some part of it also, maybe the country will go to the absolutely different level. So thank you so much, I think, Dr. Balu, having your presence here. And it was wonderful having you here, interactions. And I'm sure the students have a lot of questions in their mind, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to have you on campus so that we can have a wonderful space here we have called Rotunda. There it would be a beautiful thing to kind of, I just imagine now that on a Rotunda sitting with the galleries of the students and having a wonderful one-to-one interaction. That would be the day we'll be waiting for that. So thank you so much on behalf of Bits Pilani for coming down.
Thank you so much, Professor, and thank you all of you for inviting me. Such a pleasure. Namaste.
Thank you, Ishika. Over to you now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion with your words. I would now like to call upon Shrika to say a few words of thanks.
Thank you, Ishika, and good evening, everyone. It has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful event. On behalf of the events team, I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Dr. R Balasubramaniam, for being able to make it to the event and making it as interesting and impressive as it was. There is so much I have taken from this event, and I'm truly grateful to have had the opportunity to listen to such a great Karma Yogi like you. I'd also like to thank SK Barai sir as well as Bridge Mohan sir for being so helpful and making the event the success that it was. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank all the speakers that helped us make this event a success. Riman Didi, Ashika Didi, Darsh Bhaiya, and of course, a huge thanks to Bits Pilani's own Swami Vivekananda, Deepanshu Gupta. This event would not have happened without you guys. Finally, I want to thank each and every one of you guys who joined. I hope that you've taken something from this event and that we have been able to be the bridge between Dr. Balasubramaniam and you guys. Thank you, Ishita. Back to you.
As much as we'd all love to continue, unfortunately, that's all the time we've got. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Dr. Balasubramaniam. It was a delight hosting you. Thank you for sharing with us these pearls of knowledge. And with that, we end our talk for Yuvaan conclave. Thank you.
Thank you.